Okay. Everybody here?
Not everyone is here.
We're missing someone.
There are a few people who have not marked their transport. Mark needs you all to tick off your names. Is Kenji around? Yes, you have not. I think Claire, Xiao Wei. Yeah, just tick off, and I can't remember who else. Okay, please do it. Thank you.
Yeah. Morning, everyone. So, I think that just want to encourage everyone that it's really wonderful to see people like helping out. So people have been like doing things like I went to the laundry room, someone had thrown in the tea towels to dry and stuff. So sadhu, please carry on doing that. The other thing I would add is that if you are the last one to leave any place and there's a light or something on, please feel free to turn it off if you're the last one. So it's to save electricity for everybody here. So that's the only thing to add. But otherwise, like, great job. Carry on. Thank you.
If you find lights left on, it's not people. No, you're perfectly safe here. I don't know why when looking for people, you start to think of funny stories. I do remember one of the US presidents once. He wanted to compare which agency was the most efficient, whether it was the CIA, or whether the FBI, or whether it's LAPD. You remember this story? No, so anyway, he released a rabbit in Yosemite National Park. There wasn't no rabbits at that time there. And so, see who can find that rabbit quickest. So first of all, it was the FBI. So they went in there, and for a month they put their agents in Yosemite National Park, and they wrote so many reports. And the summary of their reports was, there was no rabbit in Yosemite National Park. That was their conclusion. Then they said in the CIA. And the CIA went in there, and they burnt down the whole of the park. And then they said, yeah, there's no rabbit in Yosemite National Park. Then they sent in the LAPD. And the LAPD went in there just one morning, that's all. And they came out of the forest in Yosemite National Park with a bear. And the bear was all bruised and bloodied and lots of wounds on him. And he had his hands up in handcuffs and said, okay, I'm a rabbit. That's not Texas. Texas is much nicer than that. Sorry, anyway, I don't know why I listened to those jokes. They're not very Buddhist jokes. Not Buddhist at all. Anyway, I could have thought of that when you're looking for somebody. Anyway, back to the meditation. When we do our meditation, I don't know how you're going with the meditation after 2 or 3 days, but the more you sit down, the longer you sit, and the more you repeat the kind of the training to let your mind be more and more and more peaceful. Learning how to relax the mind. Now, one of the first things you need to do to be able to relax the mind is to relax the body first. So say, relax the body, then relax the mind. Relax it to the max. And I was saying yesterday's talk about how we relax our bodies and how it's amazing what you can do for your body to relax in, so aches and pains. I'm not sure, sometimes I give these similes in the interviews and sometimes give these similes in the talks. And that was the simile about when I had the food poisoning. Of course, you never get food poisoning when you go to Singapore, because the Singapore people always make sure the food is delicious and hygienic. Is that correct? Yes. He would say that. And even in Sri Lanka, you never get food poisoning. Not in these wonderful resorts in the south of the island. The food is delicious there. But anyhow, when it comes to in a normal life, sometimes you can eat something and you get tummy ache. And that's one of the stories which I mentioned, which taught me just how important it is to have that deep meditation, or at least have some meditation, be able to sit there even though your tummy is really hurting. And that's when I had food poisoning. Go up in my cave, there's no telephone in the cave. The nearest telephone to my cave, you see it on Friday, I think. The nearest telephone to my cave is way down towards the kitchen area. And so I thought, what should I do? I was having spasms, very painful. I didn't know what to do. So I decided, I'm not going to ring the ambulance. By the time they get there, I'll probably be dead. Because it's a long way, even the ambulance is a long way away. You crawl down there, by the time you get to the telephone, you find, what's the number again? Do you know what the emergency number is in Australia? Sometimes I ask that when I was in Singapore. It's actually, in Australia, it's 000. Over in UK, it's 999. Over in, what's it in Texas? 911. What's it in Singapore? You're hopeless.
Police 999.
In Singapore? Okay. Oh my goodness. It's still complicated. So of course he decided, it's just too complicated, I'm just going to sit in my cave and meditate with it. Ooh! Ooh! Then it was just automatic, you can't stop it. Just a spasm came very quickly, and then just the air came out of my mouth very quickly. Ooh! But then, when you have some confidence, it's not control, it's just confidence, to see what happens, even in unpleasant, painful experiences. And then I noticed how the pain felt. And noticed when I relaxed with it, it started to feel less painful. Only a slight amount, but your mindfulness should be strong enough you can feel it less painful. Only slightly, maybe 1%. But that was enough encouragement to keep on sitting. Relax, you're not going to die. And it got less painful every time there was a spasm. And there was many spasms before it totally vanished. But it was half an hour, and after half an hour, there was no pain left at all. And my tummy was perfectly healthy. And that's when I tell you that sometimes, because I was trained as a scientist, I remember seeing those videos of bacteria, and they were all like these little blobs with little appendages coming out of them. And I always thought that, where did those bacteria go to? Because now my tummy and intestines were perfectly healthy. Where do you reckon they went to? I imagined them, little blobs with all those tentacles, now cross-legged, meditating. Well, they had to be doing something, that's my theory. I didn't care whether it was the correct theory or not, it was a bit crazy theory, but nevertheless, it worked. And just that's how I overcame that food poisoning. A lot of times, I look at how this body works and some of the ways you can deal with it, and it's amazing when you know how to relax your body. Sometimes when I'm sitting here, you're sitting here maybe for long periods, and you allow your knees to sink into the cushions. You let your body sort of sink in. The whole shoulders relax. All muscles in your body relax. And even look at any muscles which are hurting. I don't know about you, but whenever I meditate, my shoulders are always tight. I know why. It's because I carry many things on my shoulders, many responsibilities, many other monasteries, all of your problems and difficulties. And sometimes you have to make decisions. Oh my goodness, if I make the wrong decision, what's going to happen to the Buddhist fellowship? If I make the wrong decision, what's going to happen to Anukampa? If I make the wrong... You think you do. I taught you for many years about conditioning. Sometimes smart meditators are so strong that sometimes you think you're making the decision. And that's actually how you operate.
You don't make any decisions either.
Ooh, who knows? But anyway, I don't know, that may be a course, but my shoulders are often tight and tense. So when I start meditating, that's one of the first things I do, just go to those shoulders. When you can feel them, you know how to relax them. And knowing how to relax them, any part of your body you go to, you feel it, and you can experiment if you wish, to see how they can be relaxed. One of the things which I love doing is I always like to go in opposite directions sometimes. So I tense them up, I scrunch up my shoulders, and scrunch them up as hard as I can, and then let go. And they often, actually nearly always, they become more relaxed than when I started, by scrunching and then letting go. But it also teaches me, or reminds me, what letting go means. You let go, you stop trying to control it, stop trying to do anything with it, but let it totally be at ease. And that's beautiful. Another things which I do, where do you put your hands when you're meditating? On your knee? In your lap? On your head? One thing which I do is when I put my hands wherever, I ask them, hands, fingers, are you happy? As if they're my friends. Because my fingers are my friends. Now, how do you feel? And so a lot of times when I just ask them, pay attention to them. And that's one way of practicing mindfulness. To ask, your hands, how are you? Good morning. Have you had a nice meditation this morning? Have a nice shower? How do you feel? I do that. I don't say it out loud. That's how I check how my body feels. And then you get to know your body so well, you know how to relax it. You know when it's not at peace. You do that with your neck and your head. One thing I was saying to somebody, I think it was in the interviews, your brain. How much pain comes from the brain? A huge amount. So sometimes during meditation, you're not supposed to have any pain in the brain, it's not supposed to have any feelings, but we associate our brain with pain. So what I usually do, I imagine that on my head here, there is a hinge. And on this side, there's a little clip, and I open up that clip and open up my head, my skull. Just imaginary little process. And once it's opened up, and I can take out my brain, take it out of my head, and put it in a nice prepared little box, with the beautiful cushions, satin mattress, a nice pillow, and put it in there. Good night, brain. Have a nice rest. And my brain, thank you. And I close the box up. just that imaginary exercise means that my brain has almost got permission not to have to think and worry and remember. And one thing you have to remember later on is make sure you put your brain back before you get in your car and drive home. But those little exercises, you know that they work, and when they do, when everything is just so perfectly relaxed, even your nose can get so relaxed. You're supposed to have some hay fever or be sneezing, and then it doesn't sneeze. Anyway, that's what I've found, with a bit of meditation, this how to relax your body. The body can be so at ease that it's no problem anymore. Have you ever noticed if you're at your office at work, or wherever that happens to be, and if you finish all the work, how do you feel? It's all been done. Great. You can go home and take a nice rest. That's like with your body. When all of the things in the body have been settled, then I can just leave it and go into the mind, into that sixth sense world. So for me, that's always the beginning process of meditation, to relax the body so much, including the brain, that then the body feels so amazingly at ease. And sometimes you can't feel an ache or a pain, heat or cold anywhere. And that means your body is really perfectly poised to go into the meditation states. I don't have to be perfectly relaxed in the body, but so far, and I know exactly now how much. If there's too much concern always bothering me, then of course, I'll have to deal with that before I can go into deep meditation, usually. But then what do you do? The next part of the meditation, if any of you listen to those guided meditations which I teach at places like Nolamara, that once the body is relaxed and you can't feel any disturbance in the body, it is also like, you've answered all your emails, answered all the letters, and you've got an empty desk in front of you. You're free. So anyway, then you come into the present moment. I love that present moment idea. That's the only time you can have some freedom. And even though I have many responsibilities which I'm supposed to do, honestly, Venerable, do the other monks complain about me, saying I should do more work and you always have to wait for me to answer problems?
Not so much.
Not so much. In other words, they do. So what? That itself is like a teaching for you, which is not appreciated. So sometimes, you learn how to be free from responsibility. Can you help all those people in the world? Your partner in life, your kids, your parents. Do you ever feel like conflicted? And you've got so many responsibilities and you can't keep them all? Do you feel like that? Yes. Me too. Only for about a second. Let it go. You can't. It's impossible to fulfill everyone's responsibilities and needs. So instead, you learn the most important place to stay is in this present moment. I like now. If you look at the English word now, N-O-W, in the middle of now. I always like going to the middle of things. Go to the heart of the matter. In the middle of now is this beautiful O. Nothing, zero. And if you don't look at the edges of the letter O, but look inside of it, when you go beyond the circle into the center of O, there's nothing. I love doing stuff like that, because in the center of zero, there's nothing. In the center of nothing, there's freedom. It's like you're in a small enclosure, but it's got no edges to it, so it becomes infinite. So in the center of the moment now, you have this amazing sense of all the time and space in the world. So that's the next thing you go into, I go into when I'm meditating. Go into the now, into the zero, into the center of zero. It's amazing just how much we are tortured by time. How many days have you been here? I'm always here. When do you leave? When I die. That's about the end of it. So, how much time do you have? It's amazing how you can look at perceptions. Don't look at your time, your clock. No time left.
No, you say how much time you have left.
No, have I left? Yeah. Infinity of time. That's one of the things with infinity. Infinity is the same as nothing. That was one of the mathematical ideas, which I remember when I heard, allow your mind to actually to play with that. Zero and infinity being the same, beyond time. You know, I did theoretical physics at Cambridge, and that's the sort of stuff you got into. It was weird, but beautiful. And once you started getting into it, it gave you so much sense of freedom. You weren't going crazy. You would just stop counting time. You were free of it. And so that gives in the mind this beautiful sense, if you're meditating, no time anymore. You're free of it. This is not a joke. I'm saying this and I will stand by that forever. Forever. I said that on purpose, see what reaction I got. But this is where a lot of that stuff we call time, it has been a psychological perception, a framework which has been imposed on you. What about, I'm going to say some physics now. Any physicists here? No. I love some of the stuff which they said in physics, simply because it was weird. They say, the universe, how big is the universe? It's a wrong question. You can't measure it. It's always expanding. Always. But it's got no edges to it. That's the other thing which I like. Where's the beginning or end of the universe? It doesn't have one. If you can't go that fast, but if you go fast enough in that direction, straight, not to the left, not to the right, you come back here. You go round. It'll take a few thousand million years. But nevertheless, it's kind of a weird dimensions, which my trouble was, when I was listening to these physics lessons, I could understand some of them, and that's my problem. Because then you sit there, doing this lecture on something or other, like the astrophysics of the galaxy, and then afterwards, wow, wow, wow. It's just, just changing your understandings and your perceptions of what space really is. And it's incredible. It's not as you think it. You learn to see it in a totally different way. It's the space you live in. Do I live in that space? Or does the space live in me? Whichever way you look at it, it gets really weird and fantastic as well. And so when we start to understand these kind of weird perceptions, that's one of the reasons why, you start to see time and space, especially time. I've never really said much about, what about the origin of this universe? When did time begin? Do we have like an origination theory in Buddhism? No. It goes round and round and round, just like the universe of space. If you go far enough in any direction, you come back here. Keep straight, and you come back again. If you keep going straight in time, you come back again. It's very weird, but very great. Should have in a glass of water. So whichever way, let's go back a bit. Where do we go on this? Sorry? Present moment. Sorry? How did that come up? Time, yeah. Okay. So when you're talking about time and little changes of perception, different angles which we compare things to, like with time. What is, again, that time? Is time moment to moment to moment to moment? Or does it go back again? Have you relived before? I don't know that sometimes in Buddhism, sometimes, many of us realize and know that we've lived before in previous lives. I remember this gentleman. He was our Buddhist Society president some years ago, and what changed him to become a Buddhist? He was just an ordinary. He was working for the Australian Navy as an officer, and then what changed him was when his brother was, getting in a bit of trouble with the law, and so he wanted to help his brother. His brother was drinking too much and sometimes getting into fights when he was at the pub. So his brother, who was in the Navy, decided to see if he could help him. And so what he did, he decided to ask a psychologist, amateur psychologist, to try and hypnotize him and trying to figure out how come, he was thinking in such strange ways and causing trouble for him and his family. But this brother, he was interested in Buddhism, not a Buddhist yet. And so he decided to have an appointment with a hypnotist first. And the hypnotist he went to, some of you may remember him, that was Dennis Shepherd. I don't mind mentioning his name. And when he had a session with Dennis, just beforehand, they had a sudden emergency procedure. This guy here was in the Navy here in Perth. And the sudden procedure said, you've got 3 or 4 or 5 days. We're going to simulate like an attack from overseas. And you're going to see how you behave, and everyone else behaves. So he was really, really tired when that finished. And when it did finish, he went to see Dennis to see this procedure, see if it works. And so Dennis hypnotized him. Because he was exhausted, he'd hardly slept for about 3 days. This new guy, this guy who was a Navy guy, he got into deep hypnosis very quickly. First time that's ever happened to him. And then he started remembering his previous life. In his previous life, he was one of many children born in Ireland. He hated the British. And it was causing his family a lot of problems and difficulties. But he knew the only way he could get out of those financial difficulties and be able to get some sort of life was to volunteer for one of the positions in the British Navy. And this was in something like, I think, 1830. He remembered this perfectly under hypnosis. Later on, he checked it out. And it was true. And they sent him over to Western Australia. And there, he had to work for 3 or 4 years. And once he'd worked there for 3 or 4 years, then they would give him some freedom. He worked there looking after prisoners. Not a very nice job. But nevertheless, that's what he did. And he remembered where he landed over in Fremantle. He remembered just some of his friends going to a pub where he met a girl and eventually married her. He remembered all of those events. He was now working for the Australian Navy here in Perth. And once he remembered all of these things, he then remembered being offered a farm over close to Mount Barker. That's just north of Albany. That's where we have a monastery there now. And while he was there, with his wife, they built a house, a little station, sheep station, and raised a family there. And eventually, after raising the family, he was old, got sick, and eventually went over to Albany, the town there, where he lived through the rest of his years, and eventually died. And that's what he remembered under hypnosis at Dennis's place. And after remembering that, he thought, how much of this is true? So he went to the library, the Beatty Library here in Perth, and found it was all true. He found the records there, his name, and everything else. And I remember when he told me, he went with Dennis, who was also our president that year. He went, a president of the Buddhist Society, went with Dennis down to where he thought that farm was. And he found that farm. And because those of you who know Dennis Shepherd, you've seen him before, you know this other guy, whose name I won't say yet. They're really sort of, really kind of good, solid guys who are just not really weird or strange in any which way. And then they asked the new owner of that land, the farmer, can they come and see it? And he said, no. But because they were just good guys, okay, I'll let you come and have a look. And then they asked about this old building, which this guy, okay, I have to say his name sooner or later. His name Drew, his name was. This sailor, in the Australian Navy. And he said, this is where the house is, you can see some ruins. And Drew said, no, it's not. It's up on the hill there. I should know, I built it. Around 100 years ago or something. And they went up there, and it was true. Even the farmer who owned that piece of land now did not want to let on what he'd done. It was kind of breaking the law. They promised they wouldn't say much, except to me, who's now told hundreds of people. But it's a wonderful story of how this man came over to Perth as a young man with no hope where he grew up, made a life, was granted that land for having served in this as a prison officer for 3 years, got married, started a new family, and it's all still there. One of the things, checked it all out, it's all true. One of the things he did say, he said that when he was in the Aussie Army now, or Aussie Navy, as a sailor, that he would drink alcohol and just, other stuff which men do at that young age. But then as soon as he realized that his past life, he remembered it. He said the amazing thing was that he just couldn't break any precept anymore. He couldn't take any alcohol. He had to give it up. And that, he came here a few years ago and just told all the monks about what his experience was in a past life, how he could remember it. So these aren't just fantasies by crazy people. These are people who are very, very good people, well-educated, good jobs, and they do keep their precepts. He said, because I had to. Because he kind of knew what it was like if you don't, and lived the life again. So that was what this one person who, and he too became our president of WA many years later. Does that make sense to you? Can any of you remember your past lives? I ask you seriously. Many people can, but they feel embarrassed. But it told us many, many secrets, how you live one life and how what you learn from that life carries on into your next. He's always been very, very successful in his life, a good person. So anyhow, that is the kind of thing which happens and which, he found out by chance. He only wanted to find out about, past life regression through hypnosis, for his brother. But he found out he needed to test it on himself first of all. And when he found out what had happened, that kind of really sort of challenged his beliefs and changed his practices, his actions. And that's the kind of thing which I got really inspired by. It's all true. So anyhow, sometimes, why did you come here to Bodhi? Why did you become a Buddhist? Sometimes you ask these questions. I look at myself. I was born in London. If I wanted to develop as a Buddhist, why on earth wasn't I born, say in Thailand or Burma or Sri Lanka or somewhere? As a monk, what was I doing born in UK? A bad choice, was it? Or was it? Why were you born in UK when you were going to become a Buddhist nun? It's not a very good choice, was it? Or was it? A lot of times you find out that that was not your first birth, obviously. And then these births, they have a purpose to them. Isn't it wonderful that you do have that opportunity to take this beautiful practice of Buddhism, the Theravada Buddhism, where there's really good precepts and you keep your meditation really strong. Why you can't take those practices and spread them to places you've never been before? Buddhism has rarely been strong. I know that there still are many monasteries and temples in a place like England, but how much of them are really strong? They're based on this meditation. Can you just get this meditation just once in one life? Isn't it more wonderful? There's many monks, really good monks, over in places like Sri Lanka who can meditate well. But it's also wonderful when you can get monks from overseas. I'm going to go on that in a moment. And nuns as well, from all different backgrounds. It becomes really impressive. What about in Singapore? What are the best monks and nuns in Singapore? Why? So sometimes when, I go over to so many places visiting and see some of those monks and nuns and ask them what are they doing and how are they doing it. Sometimes it's wonderful to be able to see some of those monks and nuns and know there's always some great monks, some great nuns who can actually work together so beautifully well, even though they can hardly understand each other. The language is different. But nevertheless, they can look at them and they know that they're understanding the same things, understanding on the same path. And that kind of inspires me. To see it doesn't matter where you're from. There's this one of the Sri Lankan monks. He's young, he's wise, he's got much business to be done over in Sri Lanka. But I really admire him. He's a good monk. The last thing I want to do is give him more responsibility yet. But he will eventually take that responsibility and be a great monk over in Sri Lanka. Each one of these people you see, the great monks, great nuns, you want to give them that time and that resource to not to be worried too much at the early age, because sometimes it can burden you. I was fortunate. I had many other good monks with me in those early years. And coming over here to Perth, very fortunate. I had always good health. There's a weird thing about me. My sicknesses basically have hardly been there. How many times have you seen me sick?
Just a couple of times.
What did I have?
I don't know.
Runny nose.
Runny nose, yeah. Okay, I don't mind a runny nose. That's not life-threatening. But also with sickness, sometimes just you wonder, what do you do when somebody says you're sick? What I do is, I can already mention, when you had, what's it called, the problem was in your stomach, and you had sort of spasms every few minutes. What do you call that again? Sorry?
Food poisoning.
Yes, oh yeah, good. Food, I don't know why they called it food poisoning. I don't know what poison it was they put inside of me. But it's wonderful when you know how to deal with it. You just sit there and just let it go. You don't actually have to take any medication. Not for me anyway. Just take that time and relax the body to the max. The time when I did have scrub typhus, the first year in Thailand. And the problem was that no one knew what it was. Even the doctors never knew what it was. Simply because the local northeast Thais had got a natural immunity over many sort of generations. And it's only when the Westerners first came in that's when we started to capture the symptoms of scrub typhus. But according to the hospital, there was no scrub typhus in that part of Thailand, because the locals had immunity. It's only us Westerners that started to catch it. We found now afterwards, the scrub typhus, a little mite would actually bite your skin, and they would transfer the virus into you. And it was such a small bite, you couldn't hardly see it. And only after a long time do we find out that it didn't respond to the normal medications. And eventually, I remember the government sending in a crew to Bodhinyana Monastery, to Wat Banana Chat Monastery. They checked everything, and yeah, they found it there. It was only because after many years we developed the locals had developed immunity. It was just us, Westerners, who got this scrub typhus. And it was just similar to typhus. And it took a long time. Remember this doctor, this local doctor, who would come to our monastery regularly, and eventually said, "This is weird. You're getting the same symptoms, and in the books it said it's scrub typhus, but there's no record of scrub typhus in this area. And what's going on?" And it was him who sort of asked the doctors to check this more thoroughly, and they did. And they found it was not a bad disease. You had low energy for a while, and eventually you got over it. These were all young monks, so no one actually died from it. But it was just a difficulty in caring for something which you didn't know existed at that time. So all those sorts of diseases, they taught you a great lesson. You know how I got over that disease? I think I can say this. I think I was in the hospital for about 4 weeks. This was Ubon Hospital, and in the provinces of northeast Thailand. And this was not exactly the top class care. They tried their very best. But that's the place where twice a day, morning and afternoon, the nurse came around, and I turned over on my front, and she lifted up my lower robe and injected me twice a day on the same spot. That's what I thought anyway. And it got very, very sore after a while. And you anticipated it. And for 4 weeks being injected on the same spot with one of these needles, which was old, which they would always boil first of all to try and anesthetize it, in your backside. And at that time, it's quite understandable. It wasn't a joke for me. At that time, I remembered just how much it hurt every time. And because I was a monk, and hopefully a good monk, I always did share loving kindness, but not with her. I just couldn't do it. It was hurting so much. And it never worked. I always would get the fevers. And I still remember that one day, that, okay, you're starting a fever, it's going to last for a while. What to do? So, what I decided to do, I was laying on my back, which was not the usual way I would meditate, laying on my back in the hospital bed, and just almost like desperation. If ever you have, really stuck in an awful place, then sometimes you can let go of your body. It's kind of what he did. You let go of all of your body, feet, hands, back, bum. That was really important to let go of that. That was really sore. And then just see what happens. What do you think happens? You get into these beautiful jhanas. Now, I never said I'll go into the jhanas. I've got to be very careful there, because if I make claims, that's a pajitya offense, if it's true. Parajika offense if it's false. You have to leave the monkhood. And I've said that many times before, so the monks know what I'm talking about. So I got into these deep states, no pain. When you're having a fever, and when you've, now I know what it was, the scrub typhus. And it's kind of amazing that these things actually happen. And during that meditation, there's no pain at all. The body vanished. It's having this beautiful peace. You can't feel any part of your body. If you did feel any part of your body, it would be really unpleasant. Instead, you feel this beautiful joy and happiness and peace. When you come out of meditations like that, that's where also the disease disappears as well. So that was the last bit of scrub typhus I had. And when you experience that yourself, my goodness, that is powerful. It's amazing. These sorts of meditations actually work. And that's a good test that what you're actually doing is the real way the Buddhists wanted you to meditate. It works. You can't feel your body anymore. The body goes, disappears. And you're blissing out inside. When you come out afterwards, one of the results is any diseases and stuff are not there anymore. It's weird. And of course, I try to put this in a way so each one of you, can understand it, but also that people don't go on and say, Ajahn Brahm, you shouldn't have said that. The Buddha said no. It's because the Buddha never wanted any monk or nun to stand out above the others. But those experiences happen. And they're beautiful when they do. And afterwards, you find actually many of diseases just don't happen anymore. You have this strength inside of you. And anyway, that is what happens. Each one of you can do that too. And that's what was really wonderful. A lot of times, I always thought that, that's possible for anybody. It's harder if you, come from a background which was not kind of spiritual, but it's still possible for everybody. But I was fortunate. I'd been meditating a lot before. I had a good teacher like an Ajahn Brahm, and I had just enough previous experiences of what happens when you get into deep meditation. And that was enough of an incentive to make sure you do go that one step further. And sometimes having a scrub typhus for about 4 weeks, and it's usually only supposed to last for 2 weeks, but they kept giving me other medication. So after a while, you realize what works. So sometimes now, you kind of think that was a bit of a dangerous path, but it's lovely, having had that scrub typhus. In the end, it taught me so much about meditation. One of the other things which I noticed with that sort of experience, my posture. Have you ever had any meditation teachers saying, how can you expect to be still sitting like that? Come on, straighten your back, put your hands in, or whatever, put your your right leg over your left leg. My legs were all over the place. Actually, only 2 of them, thank goodness. And my arms were all over the place. And my back was all curved and whatever. But when you get into these nice meditations, you don't feel those at all. They disappear by body. And you're just in your mind space. That's so peaceful and so beautiful. Still. So that was actually a great experience. I thank that experience of being really so sick. And that's kind of what we're supposed to be. That happened because I had to. Because you were really sick. Nothing was working. And often I think that, wouldn't it be wonderful? You've all been sick. Have you been sick enough yet? Can you just give that little bit of extra sickness? So you've got no, it's far too dangerous. You can get that last little bit and get into these states where you realize what the body is, what the mind is. You may have theories about the mind and the body. When you experience, what happens when the body vanishes, really vanishes, it's gone. It's powerful. Just the mind. The other 5 senses are just humming along in the background, and you can't feel them. That's one of the wonderful things. And that's what we have meditation retreats for. I still remember this one of our members years ago. He was a good meditator, but he hadn't got a jhana yet. And I remember him on a Saturday afternoon in Perth. We used to have like a half an hour talk and about 45-minute meditation and another quarter of an hour summary at the end. And obviously just during the meditation he got quite deep. And then when we finished the meditation and I was about to ring the bell, and he was still sitting there. And he'd been talking to me about some of his experiences, and you'd realize that this guy was getting deep. And this time he broke through into those jhanas. And after the meditation was finished, and the little summary talk was finished, he was just still sitting there. And like even here, you had to talk to people afterwards, just the kindness to all the people who come to visit. And then, this was over in our Nolamara Center. And then afterwards he was still sitting there. And I remember that was the time that, we have one of our members, Lynn, and I said, can you just stay behind a few minutes? And I said, and he still hadn't moved. And I asked her, please, can you just ask him to please get up? And he was coming out of his meditation, that's why I told Lynn to say that, and take him into the next room, which was dark, and just ease him out of the deep meditation. And that's what we did. That's what happens sometimes. Unforgettable, beautiful. And they change how you look at meditation when your body totally vanishes. and your mind gets so still and powerful. And that's available for people. They do that. And when they do, that does change you. And it also, it's more peace, more happiness, more joy than you've ever had before. There's nothing like it. And also the results. You understand how your body works and how your mind works. How you can let go so easily. I never expected to talk about this today. But I did have an interesting experience when I was talking about the nature of space and time. That's when I went quiet. Decided, why not talk about it? What? Actually, he fell off the radar because, that he had the problems, and Drew was just the brother, had a good job, and, was working for the Aussie Navy as an officer. And he was the one who had to leave the Navy when you have experiences like that. He was also the one who was married. Please, being honest here, be careful, because the marriage, he couldn't stay with that marriage. He wasn't wrong at all, but there was a big difference of perception. They couldn't sort of understand each other afterwards. He became our president for a couple of years of our BSWA. A really great guy. Interesting story. Where did that come from? He was over in Ireland, before the partition of Ireland. Remembered his past lives. It sometimes shocked you. But he also remembers so much else about how life works. Fortunately, in a place like Australia, there are records kept. And when he checks those records, they're all true. Imagine that's you. You got these kind of glimpses that you were someone else in the past. Many years ago, hundreds of years ago. And you go and check it out. How would you feel? He said, that was my name. He'd check it out, and it was. With it comes some of the memories of the past. And this is not beliefs anymore. This is real memories of past lives. You know what you're here for. More things to learn, to understand. Like this monk sitting next to me, Siddhi Buddha. Where were you born?
In Texas.
Why on earth did you come here? All the way to Australia. It came from Texas. Yeah. And now he's sitting in a retreat centre, kind of, was it 100 kilometres, no, 60 kilometres south of Perth, which is not the main city of Australia. What's he doing here?
You look very good in the advertisement.
So you can be our model. It does. It pays enormously. You have a free space in Bodhinyana Monastery, which is a pretty cool monastery to be part of.
I think you'll tell the young girls.
Young girls. That's her job. It's a very cool job. It's one of the things with, I don't mind letting people know all my secrets. And, I was heterosexual before. I already mentioned, girlfriends. which you had, and just how, when you really started getting into meditation, I felt now sort of kind of guilty, but it wasn't my choice. Now with that girlfriend, after a while the relationship just died off. I was with her for about 6 months. It died off because just my whole character changed when you get into some nice meditation. You're not really interested in sensory desire as much as you were before. Kind of weird, but that's how it feels. And that was the end of that. So then I became a monk. And as a monk, you're not interested. I don't know if I should be talking like this, but nevertheless, a few times, when I was in Thailand, for example, I was a young man, and I had got a really good degree, from a university like Cambridge. So I was like a free meal ticket for any woman who married me. Because, you get a good job with a degree like that. But then, a few people tried, a few girls, honestly, not interested. It's fascinating. But I don't know actually how much I should say and how much I shouldn't say.
Just
Say. And some of these things you've got to be careful of. But it did make you very, very peaceful, very, very happy. And you didn't want anything else. It's one of the things when you get some of these deep meditations, I should warn you, it wrecks your marriage. Basically, just you're not interested in sexuality. Yeah?
A marriage isn't just about sexuality. It can be a Dhamma friendship also.
A Dhamma friendship is wonderful, but it's also the case that it's sometimes one partner, but not two. And that's the difficulty there. So, for me anyway, it didn't even start. Okay? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, any questions? There's pieces of paper outside. We can do that this evening.
There are too many questions today. There's a pause in questions.
Oh, okay. Okay. Was that okay to talk about that? Yeah. Well, we're being honest, but sometimes... sorry?
There's nothing wrong with it. It's good.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same for all the monks and nuns. All monastics.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's the same.
The same.
In terms of like relationships.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm telling you, we're staying the night, Saturday, and then coming back on Saturday afternoon after meditation. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Saves me a problem. Usually we'll leave on Friday evening, kind of late. I'm not quite sure what time. No, sure. Yeah, it won't be the usual time. We'll stay overnight there.